Hello everybody, how are you going? Welcome to the US-Canada border splits this road down the middle, something that is completely and also literally a foreign concept to me. I could understand in the middle of nowhere, but how do people live in a town like that?
I'm not allowed to cross this road because this is the town of Stansted, Canada. On the other side of the street is Derby Line, USA, and the border between the two countries runs right down this, Rue Canusa. For the local residents, that can be inconvenient.
Absolutely.
I lived here all my life, so 63 years. Today, you cannot cross over the line and visit your neighbors like years ago. If you want to cross, you have to report at customs. You know, I used to cross every day. Now I probably cross once a week because I come down to the post office over here. To go through the border, basically, they ask you a passport. They go inside. I guess they look at if you have a record or not. They look at your registration of your car. About a couple minutes and you're gone through. I'm a dual citizen, so I'm American and Canadian, so it's easier.
There is so much to unpack there. It is honestly insane. I mean, even just the fact that you can have land borders this close between two countries and you don't have to have, I don't know, 5 kilometers of tree lines and things like that between two places. I mean, I can understand how these towns often were built before land borders were made, developed, changed, whatever it is. But like I said, I don't understand how people can go about their daily lives like this. I mean, even the fact that he has to be, or I would certainly hope so, that everyone in that town is a dual citizen, because otherwise, what, you're going to be spending an hour in customs every time you want to go across? That would be seriously limiting in terms of work choices and so many other things, because if the town is split in half, then there's no way people are going to be working in another country just to commute 2 minutes. So I didn't get to have as good of a look as I wanted with this sign. So do not enter. You may not enter the United States on this street. And then of course in French, violators are subject to $5,000 and or prosecution. Wow. So I guess that is from the US's side. I wonder if Canada really cares about the other way. I can only imagine they would, but maybe it's handled as one entity. I can only assume, especially from what he was saying, that there seems to be a customs border place just down the road that you can go to and they would be managing it. So do they just have binoculars out the entire time? Because how do they manage that and just see someone walking across the border? And if they did just see someone basically jaywalking across the border, would they care? Would they come running after you, blue and red lights flashing, everything going with the army helicopters just coming over you? Or would they just go, I guess I just pretended to not see something like that? I really want to know. It sounds like an unfathomable thing that you would be spending that much time and effort and money just patrolling this to that degree that you would actually going to have a negligible or a real impact on people's lives.
This is a place where the idea of a border as a solid, easy to understand line gets a little bit fuzzy. The road doesn't run at exactly the same angle as the border, not precisely. The official line is that this is Canada and that's the USA, but both countries' maps show the road as being entirely in the US just here and entirely in Canada up there. The houses are definitely in separate countries, but the road is not quite as clear. And in practice, if I was driving, I'd be okay. Even on that side of the road, I am considered to be still in Canada, as long as I don't stop and walk up to an American house. It's fair to say that there's a little bit of leniency here if you're just nudging the border by a few centimetres, or if you're on that side a couple of inches. But while I was setting up my camera here, the police turned up, lights flashing, to move along those bikers you saw earlier, who were admiring the view from the other side of the road. It all seemed in good spirits, but they had crossed the border.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess that answers the question about how often they are patrolling it, because, well, we saw the bikers and we have his story, and there's also a police car. I can only assume that is, it said police driving by as he's doing this entire piece, and so they must be spending a ridiculous amount of money patrolling this entire area for what I can only assume is going to be a small town. Like, the fact that they are just out there, honestly, I need to know exactly where this is, as I've definitely heard about it before in terms of just in general mapping overviews and things with this 49th parallel being ridiculous. Okay, so it's over, it's on that side. I expected it to be on the west side up here, but no, it's actually not. Okay, interesting. As I'm seeing, there is a lot of tree land surrounding the entire area, and there is another town that is fairly impacted by it as well. You wouldn't want to be living on Marsh Road, but if we come back over to Stansted and North Derby, where was it? This particular place in the road, look at this. The fact that was he there? I don't even know where he is. Maybe he's down here. Oh, he must be here. Wow, that is utterly insane. Just even the fact that, well, these guys are separated with these guys. And so even though he was talking about leniency, it does then open up so many other questions about, let's just say you're driving down one side and you didn't stop, but you did a U-turn. then what happens? Because have you crossed the line, or was he talking about the roads in Canada? But what happens if the road isn't in Canada? I'm so confused. How can this even be a thing? I mean, obviously it's functioned for however long it's been functioning for, but that's outrageous. You can't stop, get out of your car, drop off mail. I mean, what does a postman do? Does it deliver international mail just on their postie bike or something like that? And even the fact, I feel as though I'm seeing some sporting fields down here, and so do the people around here get to play international sport, international level sport? Just you could be 6 years old and playing international sport if you're playing your soccer team, your football team, your ice hockey team, whatever it is going to be, across an international border. And also, thinking about it now, so often I've heard the phrase like no man's land and all those kind of things, which I've always interpreted as a buffer zone between two countries that whether they can't agree on it or just naturally they kind of do, so that there isn't a perfect line like this where you have international land. I mean, I guess that could then become a bit dicey, because if felonies and crimes are committed in that area, then who is managing it? And even like, what happens if you had a car crash and there was a manslaughter charge on one side of the road? It's just outrageous. I mean, no construction or trees within 3 meters of the international boundary. I can understand why, so you don't have discrepancies, but this sounds like an absolute minefield.
Well, the library is part on the Canadian side, part on the American side. Yes, but you stay on Canadian side, you stay on the sidewalk, and you go through the front door, and it's permitted. On Canusa Street, there's a sidewalk on the Canadian side. So back years ago, it was tolerated that people on the American side could cross over and walk on the sidewalk. So, you know, basically it's a little dangerous to walk on the side of the road. And now today, well, it's not tolerated no more. I think the rule hasn't changed much, but they're more enforced.
It certainly sounds that way. To not even be able to cross the road or be putting yourself in danger by walking on the road or on the side of the road, but not really on the side of the road, or not in a designated area. That sounds outrageous. I mean, to what degree are they just taking it above and beyond? I mean, do people get away with certain things? Like I said, there is a degree of leniency, but it certainly doesn't sound like there's much degree of leniency, especially given the situations. I would think that there would be more, but clearly not. I mean, even just the fact that they've gone ahead and put flower pots down, for goodness sake. I mean, yes, in the library, it is split in half, and at least they didn't just go ahead and drop a guillotine on the thing and chop it in half and go, nope, this is the USA's and this is Canada's, and you have to go through customs to get to the other side. And I mean, honestly, you might as well just have a customs officer as the receptionist and librarian, because they're just going to be managing that entire thing if you were to go down that path. But the fact that they've gone ahead and put flower pots between the border, I mean, it's such a lackluster wall, but if you cross it, someone's going to just come out in red and blue flashing lights and take you out, for goodness sake. And that also does make me wonder, is there two separate police forces, two separate fire stations, two separate, maybe not hospitals, but so many different things? Is it all segmented, all different budgets, all different things like that? Because I wonder, if you have a police turn up, or you call the police, and the other one turns up, or you get flagged down by another, then is there a better one? Is there a worse one? Because I know what both countries' perceptions of their police forces or their servants, police servants, are. And it really does make me wonder what has gone wrong, what has happened, what has changed for this change over his lifetime. He said 63 years he has lived there. What has changed, and why has it changed? Because he used to just go back and forth every day. Did they not have the resources? And now, for whatever reason, they're just pooling and funneling more in. Is it more of a... I don't know, is it like, they're so close, they're so domestic. It's basically a domestic town that is internationally feuding. It doesn't make any sense.
When you cross, they ask you more questions than they used to,
right,
you know, years ago. Before, you went through the border and you knew most of the custom officer, and then they used to wave to you, you know.
In 1783, this section of the Canada-US border was set at the 45th parallel, a line of latitude. Yeah. Slightly inaccurate measurements were accepted by both countries. Okay. So it was locked in. But as for this specific road, there are local stories about drunk surveyors and pranks, but no one really knows.
Oh, that is outrageous. I mean, even just the fact that that view right there, I can only imagine is one of the views that the bikers were trying to admire, and I can understand why, as it is certainly a very nice view, but then it also does make me wonder, are there any properties over yonder somewhere that are internationally dependent, or is every single plot of land then split independently? I can only imagine it would be, because, I mean, you've carved this path, but why is there a road's width of carving through the trees but then not that same kind of designation given for the road. I mean, I know it's called the 49th parallel, but to what degree were the surveyors just trying to screw people over for the rest of eternity? Because if they just went up and over, or moved it a little bit, or made it a little bit squiggly like it is all around the Great Lakes, then it wouldn't be a problem. Then at least you could just go, okay, at these 1 or 2 or 6 designated roads, stopping them perpendicular to the direction of travel, compared to just running and screwing people over by a parallel road where you can't even stop on. I mean, I did want to come back to this building because I can only assume, yeah, welcome to the United States, all vehicles must report for inspection. And so is that custom, so to say? I can only imagine that it would be, but it's also such a small building. Like, if you had a whole, I don't know, 400 people on a bus and train and everything else coming through there, how long would it take to process all of these people? Even if it is only taking 2 minutes at a time, it's still going to take 400 minutes, 800 minutes, that's a lot of time. So I feel as though this video has done nothing but make me want to ask more questions about this entire place, because the more time I spend thinking about it, the more I just think that it's completely outrageous and I don't understand how anyone could ever live there. It's just like, how do you have any population? Surely everyone just gets driven out by the inconvenience of living on an international border to that degree, literally the razor's edge of an international border. I mean, I very well could just be exaggerating it a little bit and not fully understanding the minimal impact that it has, as I said earlier, and as I've said multiple times, Australia's border is very clearly defined. I don't have a real concept about how anything like this would truly work. I think I've only been through, in memory, 1 land border, but I was certainly not just crossing back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and just needing to use the resources on the other side over and over again, and then just not being able to stop on the road, for goodness sake. No, I went through, and that was it. And that was enough of a process. And so it sounds like there just needs to be a special exception. I mean, especially if you have a dual citizenship. I mean, if the police pulled you over or pulled you up on the fact that you were a citizen from not the country, then I guess I can understand. I feel as though there needs to be something written that just says if you are a dual citizen, you're allowed to travel 50k or 5k within each border, and you don't even have to report to anyone. You can just do it, you're all good, you can just jump back and forth all day long, and it's all fine. Not have to report like this guy does every week or every day or anything like that. It's absurd.